This one you can?
Right, and you just
Okay.
slide it back, you know, like
Yeah.
basically you put it on the spokes and then wedge it up until there's enough tension to hold it there.
Okay.
And then you can, you know, push it back down, take it out and put in the 2032. So that's
Okay.
what it looks like in the
Nice.
spokes.
Yeah, I love how they look. It's
Mhm.
such a fun look, and people just they see it right
Yeah,
away, you know, from like 2 blocks away. They're
right.
Like, what's that?
Mhm. But it's going round and round, and
Right.
that's the whole,
Yeah.
it's not like, well, what is that? Is it somebody's,
Yeah.
you know?
And I feel
am I-
like it looks, it has a fun look to it too.
Yes,
It's not like
right.
imposing.
Right, it's not like, I have all the blinkies. It's like,
Right.
dude,
You call to order and I'll roll call.
Yeah.
all right.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's bicycle. We're going to thank you for coming to tonight's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission meeting. First, we're going to do the roll call.
Annie Adams,
Here.
Susan Jones,
Present.
Tommy Griscom,
Here.
Jushi Huang,
Yes.
Audrey Ishii, Bruce Michelson,
Here.
Keenan Portis, Sartak Prasad,
Present.
Nancy Westcott,
Here.
and John Zeman in for Carmen Franks.
All right, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I think I missed the previous minutes. I don't know which minutes. I saw September and October last month, I think.
Right, we don't have November's minutes ready for this meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right, the next item is going to be approval of minutes of previous meeting, but it's my understanding we do not have those. So
Yet.
we're gonna just move on. The next thing is gonna be public input. So if folks wanna give public input, you can step up to the microphone here and what happens is, at this moment, if you wish to give public input on anything whatsoever, you're more than welcome to step up and. Yeah, it's a little weird, I know, yeah. Anything on the agenda, we basically just start with public input, and then after that, we go into the rest of the agenda. Doesn't mean we won't talk to you again.
I have a few things on my mind. My name is Pamela Sands. I live in.
Is it on? Is the microphone on? Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm just not screaming at you, but I could. So I live in Scottswood subdivision, and I appreciate you inviting me to this meeting where you tell me that you're going to build a road 4 feet behind my back fence and cut down all the really big trees. So that's not acceptable. In speaking with my neighbors, you only have to move your little road a few feet, 10 feet, to miss the trees. There's a 100-year-old Osage orange behind our houses. You don't need to cut those down. I don't care what you plant to replace them. You're going to have to wait 100 years to get that. And that adds value, whether, I know you've said you've looked at the value of the trees, but the value of the trees, not just what it's physically worth, it's what it brings to us. And you don't live there. That's out my back door and out my neighbor's back doors. And that brings value to us. Not to mention, let's talk about privacy. Do you want someone to build a road behind your house or a sidewalk or a bike path where just a bunch of people coming back by that you don't even know? It's already, Dodson Drive is very, very busy. Like, when school is taking in, I'm afraid to step out because the mamas on the way will run you down to get to school. It's very, very busy. It's the fastest way to the interstate. I already have a busy street in front of my house, as do my neighbors. I do not need commotion in the back. They're already driving across the grass to get to the soccer field. They're going to drive on that. It's just logical. It does not need to be on the east side of the tree line. Please build it on the west side of the tree line, or even better, on the west side of the park, not next to anybody's house, and you could tie it up with that parking lot you've already got up by Main, that would make perfectly good sense. But why you feel the need to put it 4 feet from my back fence, I do not know. That is not acceptable. The neighbors are concerned about the trees, and the neighbors that I've spoken to are concerned about the lighting. So please do not build that as you have it drawn for the plans that you did not post and finally sent me at 1:58 p.m. in an email. It's not, I feel like it's disrespectful. We have a right to privacy even though we're not in the city. It feels like we are being ignored, like we don't matter, like it's those people. We're homeowners on my side. Most of us own homes. We don't need the lack of privacy. That will be the result if you chop down all the trees. You will also leave a lot of animals homeless. The mulberry feeds the mallards, the geese, the squirrels, and anything else that stops by. And when you go farther north, up by Maine, if you cut down all those blackberry canes, you're cutting down the food for your wildlife as well. And since it's a wildlife area, it just makes no sense to me that you would cut down housing and food for the wildlife that you supposedly want to protect and attract. It does not add up. Please do not build it as you have it drawn. You really need to go back to the drawing board on this. I'm not the only person who thinks that, so thanks for your time.
I guess I have a clarification question. Is this in reference to the shared use path? Is that what we were discussing? Or was that something else? No? Okay, I didn't understand that.
Yes,
Well, maybe, can you clarify that, John?
yes, this is about the Baker's Lane shared use path.
Okay, thank you.
But we'll be talking in depth about that, correct? All right, because I as well would like to keep the 100-year-old trees. We're the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Commission, so we didn't actually, there you go. There you go. Does anyone else have anything they want to add before we move on to Commissioner Communications?
I just want to get we're talking about turf that's outside the city limits?
You live outside, you live on the edge of, yeah.
Okay, so, but what we're talking about is, I just see whether or not we have any.
It's a confusing situation because it's going to be Park District, it's going to be City of Urbana, it's going to be up against Scottswood, but we'll talk about it in depth, I suspect, John, correct? Yep.
And thank you for your input.
So is there any, on a totally different subject, Commissioner Communications, anything anyone wants to share?
The Santa Rampage was a lot of fun yesterday.
Did anyone attend or find out about the speed limit? There was a traffic commission meeting, and there was speed limit discussed, and I believe it's actually in this neck of the woods. Did anyone hear what happened with that discussion? All right, Audrey will have to fill us in, because there are no meeting notes for that one. All right. All right, so we have.
Well,
Nope.
Annie, I could offer, Nancy was there too. Yeah.
Well, the engineers decided for all the ones that made sense, the speed limits were made to be what they should be. What they were, what would be legal, because there had been emissions. So the one on Main Street was put at 30 miles per hour. I remember that one clearly. Yeah. The other ones, I don't quite remember the details, but they seemed reasonable. And so those were done and the signs were changed. I think there's, but.
what we're discussing is there were speed limits that were over, they were 35, and we realized that the ordinance asked them to actually be 30, and we asked if we could lower the speed limits to 30. Am I correct?
Or they were omitted, they should have been, they were posted incorrectly
Okay,
for,
whatever
it might
reason.
have been, there might have been some reason, but it was not documented,
Right.
so.
And we've been very concerned about the Main Street connectivity to the Kickapoo Rail Trail and the speed limits on that street. And that's where a person was killed, so we were trying to make sure that we had adequate speed limits on there. All right, so unfinished business is e-bike battery safety discussion and Ryan Franks.
Carmen said it would be on here on the left.
I might be able to get in my email and pull it up real quick. It'd be a bit of a trick. Technical difficulties, 1 minute. Yeah, and the same weekend, they got a new website and they changed our email address. So they really wanted to mess us up. All right. Oh, she's texting me too. Okay, thanks, man. Nice.
Has anyone had time to use the new website? No.
Okay. Very good. Well, thanks, committee members. Thanks for having me. My name is Ryan Franks. My wife is Carmen Franks. She's assistant city engineer and I guess staff member of this committee, usually, but she's at home watching the kids. I wanted to talk to you about e-bike safety at her request. I understand there's been some concerns about that and a desire for additional information. First, why should you listen to me? Who am I? I have an engineering degree from the University of Illinois here. I have an MBA. Proud Urbana resident, and I also have been working in lithium-ion battery safety for about 18 years at CSA Group, which is a laboratory, as well as consulting firms and the U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratories. Currently, I still work in that field doing battery analytics. So the issue with e-bikes is that they can produce fires. This issue is most prominent in New York City, as well as many developing nations where scooters and e-bikes are very common. There are not great statistics because data is not collected, but the best statistics really do come from New York City. What occurred, you have to put this in the context of COVID. During COVID, of course, everybody was inside. There was a tremendous increase in DoorDash deliveries and the like, deliveries from stores and restaurants. There are a tremendous amount of delivery bike riders in New York City. And that directly correlated with a spike in e-bike fires in New York City. So in 2019, there were only 13 injuries due to e-bike fires in New York City, but combined in 2022 and 2023, there were 250. And that resulted in 5 deaths, as well as dozens of injuries. So it really can be a problem, and I provided some citations there. What I want to explain to you is the cause of e-bike fires, as well as some practical recommendations on what to do about it. So the issue is that when you have, and we're talking about e-bikes, but I really mean, anything can qualify here: scooters, hoverboards, skateboards. There's all sorts of e-mobility devices. What happens is, if you saw in that first slide, that's a picture of a generic e-bike, and you have a battery that is slotted somewhere inside of that device. Inside of that battery pack, there are dozens, usually, of individual cells or pouches that are individual batteries. There's a picture of that at the bottom. And the construction of that is that there's an anode, there's a cathode, and then there's a separator and electrolyte. And that is basically one sheet that is then rolled up. During thermal runaway, which is what causes this fire or explosion potential, there's a short circuit that connects the anode and the cathode that leads to a discharge of the energy that really can't be stopped on its own. So the causes there are provided in this diagram up top. There's mechanical abuse due to bending or puncture or dropping the battery pack. There can be electrical abuse, like overcharging it, over discharging it, using the wrong charger, having defective cells. Or there's thermal abuse. Obviously, if you put the battery into a fire or expose it to hot temperatures or do charging when it's very low temperatures, that can affect how the battery behaves and lead to a thermal runaway event. All of this is important to understand because what happens is that thermal runaway in batteries, in any situation, a cell phone, an e-bike, a car, an energy storage system, is difficult or impossible to put out. Really the most common approach is really LIB, let it burn, and protect everything else around it. The best thing you can really do is throw it into a bucket of water, or preferably salt water if you have it on hand so that it discharges faster. But that's kind of the academic sense of it. What really happens in root cause analysis, and I've done fire testing, burn testing, helped out with fire investigations. What happens is a couple of things that can lead to this event. Number one, improper charging. You can have frayed cables, you can have again, using mismatched equipment, chargers that are not meant to be used with the battery in question on the device. The biggest thing, and this is really the cause of a lot of the fires in New York City, is DIY efforts. So if you have an e-bike, usually about 60 to 70% of the cost of that device is the battery. And batteries are essentially a long-term consumable. But if you're a delivery driver or a frequent user of it, you eventually reach the end of life, or you have diminished capacity. So you go and you don't want to necessarily spend the money to replace that entire battery. So what happens is people buy counterfeit batteries. They buy them on Amazon or something else, and they're either uncertified or they're a different type than is existing in the original device, which leads to imbalance issues and this thermal runaway event. In addition, certainly, I mean, it's very obvious, but I mean, if you have floods, you wouldn't want to use that device anymore if it had been a flooded e-bike, or, you know, in some cases, rain. If you have rain penetration, I mean, these battery packs do oftentimes have exhaust ports that can have water intrusion into them. You know, in addition to DIY efforts, uncertified devices has been a big problem in many areas. So New York City overcame these problems by doing really two things. One, they passed a local ordinance that required any e-bike or e-mobility device sold, leased, or distributed in the city to have a certification mark, a third-party testing. The additional thing that occurred was that they received an emergency grant from the federal government to the tune of about $25 million to establish 170 charging sites at 50 locations around the city. Because what was also happening in New York City is that you had a lot of multi-tenant buildings where people would charge in hallways, or you had delivery drivers that didn't have a proper place to charge during the day. So they would make these sort of ad hoc agreements with restaurants and charge in alleys and overload circuits, use cables, use chargers that they didn't have. And it was just a, you know, kind of a mess of a situation. So that's been really successful in mitigating a lot of those devices. So, or not devices, a lot of those problems, excuse me. So the best practices. One, I personally believe that the best thing is education, because what is really occurring here is that you have a large mass of active energetic material in these devices, and people don't realize that you're essentially sitting on some, like the equivalent of a container of gasoline, right? So people charge them under pillows, they charge them in rain, again, mismatched devices and things of that nature. It's also really important to buy and use devices that are certified by an independent laboratory that bear a certification mark. So that's basically an audit of the device. And I used to work at one of those, CSA. But there's UL, Underwriters Laboratory, CSA, which is the Canadian Standards Association, Intertech, TÜV is a German organization. These all operate globally and do testing in laboratories to ensure that things meet safety standards. Charging in a proper place is really important. It needs to be an attended place, at least, you know, not completely set out of mind. It needs to have air flowing to it, and it needs to be out of weather. You know, not charging in rain, not charging in really cold temperatures like we've experienced, not charging in really hot temperatures like we sometimes experience in the summer. Using proper chargers, the charger that is specified or equivalent for the device. And then obviously avoiding damaged equipment. I mean, there is, you know, if you have swelling of the battery or you have clear bending or puncture of the case, that should be discarded. And then for repair and replacement of the battery, really education around avoiding DIY efforts, buying proper replacement parts, and I don't know if such things exist in Urbana or the surrounding area, but using qualified technicians to repair those devices should it be necessary is really the much better path than doing a DIY, do-it-yourself effort. Trying to advance here. There you go. So one word about specifications in particular. UL and the New York City Fire Department and other entities like the National Fire Protection Association have been very interested in this issue. They have developed, UL has developed a couple of standards documents which you can view online that contain the testing requirements to bear a certification mark. There's really three to pay attention to. UL 2849 is for e-bikes. 2271 is for every other e-mobility device that isn't an e-bike, scooters, skateboards, and the like. And then 2271 is for the actual battery that's contained in those devices. So I've provided a couple other links here for additional reference. Like I said, there is lots of attention being paid to this by the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, UL, which is Underwriters Laboratory. They're based up in Northbrook near Chicago. New York City and the New York City Fire Department have a lot of great materials. And in addition, there's an interesting link there that I've put from an organization called Soteria, which is an engineering firm. They actually, over the past year and a half or so, took apart, I believe it was about 1,000 e-bike and e-bike batteries and looked at what the issues were: improper spacing, not having materials, using defective or uncertified cells and the like, and produced a comprehensive report. So all that said and done, I was asked to provide a little bit of information about the scope of the problem, what can be done about it, and I'd be happy to answer any questions now or in the future. I provided my email and phone number on the first slide. Thank you.
Evan, go ahead. One of the reasons we have so many sagging one-car garages in old Urbana is they were built in an era when cars had a bad habit of blowing up. And so you kept the Model A or the RAO speed wagon away from the house. So when that single-wall gas tank or that rubber hose went, it didn't take the whole building down. My point is, eventually, cars got safer, and eventually we moved the cars basically into our houses with us, whether that's a good idea or not. And something like this is going to happen sooner rather than later, we assume, with regard to batteries that go into e-transport. The concern for us right now is what happens if somebody has a malfunctioning battery or gets cute with one on the 10th floor of a student apartment complex on John Street. We can't get ahead of the major municipalities on this. And you looked out there, I looked a couple of weeks ago. It's chaos in terms of how the big, well-funded, well-advised cities in the Western world have been handling this. I mean, only rental scooters are allowed on the streets of London. Private scooters are not allowed. It's the reverse. In Paris, you can have a private scooter, not a rental scooter. Scooters, e-scooters, whether they're rented or privately owned, are banned from virtually every railroad and public transport system in the United Kingdom. They're also banned in Barcelona, Paris, Berlin. This is, we're in some ways, you used the COVID comparison earlier. We're flailing and trying to figure out how to get some a rational, at least provisional or near-term safety leverage over this kind of thing. Our immediate issue here is we've got, 6 different entities in the e-scooter, e-bike monopoly game. We've got the 2 park districts, we've got the Forest Preserve, we've got the university, and the 2 cities. And we're not going to be able to get ahead of London, Paris, and Barcelona in terms of thinking strategically about this. But seeing to it, we could have a consistent idea of where we are collectively and what we can do consistently as people swap apartments and extension cords around in the 3 cities. That would be a good idea. I think that's the purview of that's what we're worried about right now, and not wanting to extend magisterially out into territory, which, as you're saying, is kind of open and rapidly changing.
Well, it sounds like education, we need to figure out a way to do that education element so that people are less likely to, stick the battery in their bathtub while they take their finals.
One of the questions that I had, again, thank you for the presentation, by the way. So I work for the university. I'm going to go on the record and say we are not going to install any e-bike chargers right now as a university, but you mentioned that outdoor charging is, I would say, charging outdoors, especially in really cold weather or really hot weather, is not advisable or is not really advised. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
so it would ultimately depend upon the specifications of the battery,
Okay.
right? But in general,
Mhm.
yes, you want to avoid charging at very low temperatures, like significantly below zero, negative
Because
negative 10 or so.
currently, with the university, well, fire safety is the biggest issue, which is why we are not providing e-bike charging on campus. On a personal note, I would like to have something outdoors because it's much safer to have charging outdoors than students smuggling their batteries inside the dorms and charging indoors. So, again, that's my personal view. That's not from the university's perspective.
Do they have any recourse now other than to
No.
smuggle?
That's the, Mhm.
Yeah, if you try to regulate,
So that's what we are going to, what I'm proposing right now. Again, it's not been done, it's all draft, it's all, what I'm proposing to the university is to have some sort of education campaign with UL certified or certified batteries to be allowed only to be used on campus. But my main question again, is about the charging outdoors. How, I suppose I will have to have a conversation with you separately to
Well-
learn more about it. But
Yeah, if I may, I mean, if you think about it, though, I
Yeah.
mean, a vast percentage of the year,
Yeah.
it's fine. I
Yes,
mean, really,
yeah.
really all I'm talking about is leaving something
And,
unmonitored on the very, very coldest days of the
Yes.
year. Yeah,
And
right.
during those coldest days, we don't really have
Yeah.
that many students.
The new
right?
workout facility, the outdoor workout facility has charger, you can plug stuff in at that new outdoor, just
Yes,
FYI.
but it's not for e-bikes or e-scooters. Still,
It's just
technically,
a
yeah, it is
plug.
just a
Keep-
plug.
it's all it
We've
is,
got
yeah.
plugs all over campus, yeah, but, yeah, it's not specified, again. Thank you, though. I will reach out to you for more information, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, education, so people know what they're dealing with. You know, if you put it in perspective, I mean, is this some sort of epidemic in Urbana? No, not right now. But and then in addition, you know, firefighter training to handle lithium-ion batteries, I would say is a practical recommendation. And usually firefighters are very eager to receive training.
Yes.
Very much so.
Can we look at that slide which has all the numbers of the different types of batteries? I like this slide. Because if you have like a personal e-mobility device right now, you're allowed to bring it into your dorm to recharge it, am I correct?
Yes.
And if we have, because right now one of the issues is people can't bring bikes, but that's a whole nother subject. But it's like, if you wanted, I just always found it interesting that you can bring your e-mobility device in, but we don't have the other ones. You know, you're not allowed to bring other, it's sort of, what we're, you know, what we're saying is it's like arbitrary right now, what's allowed in and what's not allowed in. But I really like this slide where it describes the, you know, the different types of batteries. And we all know we're all carrying around, you know, a phone, which needs a battery, and then there's all these other standards. Did anything drop in New York City once they started? Yeah, that was my.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it has been, I think that link that I provided there from Consumer Reports has some additional updated numbers, but yes, it was drastically down once people stopped charging in proper locations, realized the danger, and that, I mean, because nobody, I mean, you're writing on it, you don't want that danger, so.
Yeah, it's like 50% of the product you just bought is now destroyed, and so people don't want to do that. It was like, remember when you used to have computers and you had to keep a magnet away from it to not destroy the computer? Like, it's sort of that type of education that you have to kind of get across to people.
it took a couple of fatal fires for that education to move forward, though, the reality is. Front page stories of multiple people getting killed because somebody got cute with a battery downstairs. We're trying to avoid that. You know.
Well, yeah, I thought about including some interesting YouTube videos. I mean, if you just search thermal runaway on YouTube, you can get many videos of various things in uncontrolled environments and in controlled environments. But those links, specifically, I would ask you to maybe follow up with your interest on those links, because UL, the New York Fire Department, have information sheets. They have basically media kits that if you wanted to engage in an education campaign, could be replicated in some form or fashion.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Really appreciate this.
Thanks very much.
All right, the next is we're going to discuss the Baker Lane Shared Use Path. And it's just a preliminary plan presentation, and that'll be John Zeman.
All right, well, here we go. Get my, many different chords do I have in here? And I do apologize for my voice. It sounds worse than it feels, so I think you all are the ones that are really suffering here. Sorry about that.
Can
I'll
you
try to
join our
speak up.
choir and sing bass?
All right, I'm just going to go ahead into content here. Okay, so yes, we're going to talk about we have preliminary plans for the Bakers Lane Shared Use Path. This is a shared use path, new construction that is funded by an ITEP grant from the state of Illinois. We're doing this in partnership with the Urbana Park District and with the Urbana School District. And this front page, the plans, provides an overall map showing the extents of the project, where we're looking here in the kind of east end of town. Weaver Park is between Main Street and Washington Street, east of the Brookins Center and other county facilities over there by Learman. This is north of kind of by the Prairie Elementary School campus. So where the path begins is actually on Washington Street, the north side of Washington Street. And it's starting at the new Urbana Park District Health and Wellness Facility. And we'll go east until it gets to Smith Road, and then we'll head north partially along city right-of-way and partially in Weaver Park until it gets to Main Street, where it'll then be a mid-block crossing to connect up to the future Kickapoo Rail Trail segment up there. All right, and so what I was just going to do is to kind of step through some of the preliminary plan details. It's like we did with Florida Avenue a couple months ago. Definitely just a open discussion. Happy to take questions or dive into details as you want. So we got some typical section here showing this is Washington Street looking eastward, where the trail will be on the north side is on sheet 2. And we are replacing the existing sidewalk with a wider 10-foot path. So we have an existing kind of typical 4-foot sidewalk. We're going to replace it with a shared use path, 10-foot wide.
John, to be clear,
Yes.
can you give us your definition of a shared use path?
Sure. Yeah, the shared use path would be, it's generally a separated pathway away from vehicular traffic, and it's intended for bikes, pedestrians, and other active transportation. So generally speaking, vehicles do not operate on a shared use path other than potentially maintenance vehicles. Yep, thanks. And then the sheet 3 just shows a typical section of the path when it turns north on the, quote, Baker's Lane right-of-way. And I'm sure there's some history there as to why it's called Baker's Lane. This, predates me for sure. But it was this kind of strip of right-of-way, which kind of looks like it was maybe an abandoned right-of-way for Smith Road at one point, that is on the eastern boundary of the city limits. And yeah, so this is within the right-of-way. We're mostly working this, if I can do some math here, 33 feet wide right-of-way. But a lot of it will go into easement over into the parks territory over here. Generally speaking, just that 10-foot path, and we're going to be pitching generally westward to pitch any surface runoff away from the neighborhood to the east. All right, kind of similar. It's just some engineering back and forth. Okay. Definitely don't care about the alignment, survey data, but here, okay, so coming into, this is actually the driveway to the new Park District Health and Wellness Facility. So we're on Washington Street, north is up, and we're heading eastward. So what we've got is kind of doing what we can with the path. You know, we're going twice as wide with the path compared to what's there. So we're going to do what we can to avoid trees and minimize the impact to the utilities while still providing a good path for everybody.
Does it mean you're going to rip out the existing path and make it wider, or are you just adding on to the existing?
We're
side?
gonna tear out the existing. It would be much more difficult to try to just scab on 6
Yeah.
feet to the existing and still maintain ADA compliance. So
And it would just be wacky by the end of it.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, for sure.
So is the existing sidewalk, is that going to be kind of the eastern side of the path?
So the existing sidewalk that I'm talking about is on the north side of Washington Street. So it'll go all in front of the school there until we get to Smith Road, where Smith Road has like a T intersection with Washington. And then the trail will turn north, and we'll see that in a couple of sheets here.
Okay, I guess.
I don't know if I answered your question or
No,
not, Nancy.
as it goes north.
Yeah.
And you tear out the sidewalk, will the sidewalk still be on the eastern side of the mixed-use
Yes,
path?
yes, there'll still be a sidewalk continuing on the north side of Washington for continuity. Yeah.
And that sidewalk will be the eastern edge of the mixed-use path?
I'll
the
advance
mixed-use path
to see if
will
we're.
be on the west side of the sidewalk?
Let's see. Okay,
I
so
just pulled up a Google.
I would say, Nancy, I'm looking at this is the image right here, which I know they're just a bunch of black and white lines, but if you can imagine, here's Smith Road here, Washington Street, going left to right. The path is 10 foot wide on my cursor here, and then here it goes north, and then this 4 foot sidewalk continues going east. And so right here is the crosswalk. I know there's a crossing guard there every morning as my route to work. There's like a crossing guard for the students every morning there, just before the entrance to the school.
While we have you stopped, I have another question. So it overlaps with some driveways. What do we plan to do there?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, we're pretty much gonna have to rebuild every driveway we come across, because in order to keep that ADA compliant slope going across, you really can't count on just putting it in there and it'll fit together. You gotta do part of the apron on either side to match things up. Yeah.
Were you asking about visibility, or were we just asking about?
Well, I guess one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Because I've seen on many shared use paths that cross a driveway, such as the one on the south side of Crystal Lake Park. There'll be stop signs on the shared use path, kind of implying that cyclists need to come to a full stop. And it's kind of always a point of contention, because nobody ever wants to come to a full stop, and it oftentimes doesn't make any sense because there's no traffic. But we need to have some sort of mechanism in place to ensure that people are traveling through the space safely. So I'm just kind of curious if you guys had any ideas. in
Okay,
mind
so
for
you're
that.
curious, would there be any traffic control for the shared use path at the crossings?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, no. It
Yeah.
would be a special case when there would be.
Okay.
Now, and that's where I've got I'm not the one doing this design. I've got our design consultant putting this together, and I'll pose that as a question to him. I know I already have the question about the detectable warnings that are shown here. I know those are not, strictly speaking, those are not required except at places where people have stop control, like an alley, like a side street. But you don't put those at every driveway,
Right.
because that kind of runs away from you.
Yeah.
So I suspect it's similar with traffic control. And I should say, I'm very remiss. Sorry, Derek. So Derek Liebert with the Urbana Park District is, very, it's good of him to join us, in that Derek and his team have been a very good partner in this project, and I know that, you know, you're always welcome to chime in, Derek, if you want to add anything. But
It's just one other idea. It would be awesome if we could have like a stop bar or something to indicate that cars exiting on a driveway should stop before the path. If there's enough visibility, I guess, you know, we'd take a look at that. But it would be nice if they're not like pulling into the path to stop and then going and then turning left or right.
okay,
Because I'm just seeing a lot of I'm looking at the Google Maps here, and, you know, I'm seeing a lot of big intersections, like leaving the school. And I assume we're gonna have a lot younger users on this path.
Yeah.
So anything that we can do to help keep them safe, and they're gonna be more eager to move through that space. So that would be interesting if there is a way to create safety there. I'd be for that.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
definitely pose that question to the designers.
And I'm seeing a lot of little trees, but again, you're gonna try to save, it looks like too, some of the trees are on the left and some of the trees are up against the road.
Right,
And
and you can
there's-
see we're kind of jogging around here and there.
Good, yeah, because that's what
Yeah.
it looks like you'd have to do, is you'd have to jog back and forth to say, which is fine. If you're on a bike, a
Mhm.
straightaway is boring anyway, so,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, the designer hates it because they like to draw straight lines. The contractor probably will hate it too because they like to build straight lines, but we're trying to accommodate what's already built. All right, right. There's no straight lines in nature, right? That's what the architects always tell me. What'd they do? Oh, too much? Oh, motion sickness? Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what, you see what they think of the alignment when we head north, I guess. Here, make some notes here real quick.
Yeah, John, just to follow up on the input we had at the beginning of the meeting, is all the real
Yeah.
estate we're talking about under the purview of the city of Urbana, or is it county, park district?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is a project where there's a lot of there's a lot of overlap with different jurisdictions. So where part of it is along Washington Street, which is actually prescriptive right-of-way. It's not right-of-way that was dedicated to the city, so we're actually going on school district property, but we're getting an easement to do so. I say prescriptive easement because, well, the school district doesn't maintain streets, so obviously it's the cities to take care of that. So we'll work with the school district and have an intergovernmental agreement there. As we get into the park district, we're gonna have a really close relationship with the park district on this one, where they're going to, we're gonna have a shared relationship of ownership and maintenance. The park district's gonna help with some of the maintenance activities. Potentially the lighting elements may become the park district property. And so we'll just work together to kind of hash out the details there. But much of this path is actually on the park district property. And that was a consequence of walking the path with the design team, the park district, and the school district, and finding, okay, what is going to be a good compromise for all these different objectives we're trying to meet. And as I go up that alignment, I think it'll become clear kind of what happened there. And so we will operate the path with an easement going through the park district. So it'll still be park district property, but we'll have an easement to operate the path through there. And then there will be a couple points where we want to connect with dead-end streets, and those will be where we get easement from the township to make the connection on, to the street with some bollards, and I'll show you that in a minute. Then when we get north at the end of Main Street, we're gonna connect up with Kickapoo Rail Trail property on the north side of Main Street. So we'll again have some easement coordination with them as well. Yeah, good question, Bruce. Thanks.
Who's ever coordinating all this? Thank you. I know it's a lot.
Well, I just got to make phone calls and write emails. I'm not doing the hard work. But no, we're definitely trying to get, and that's a big part of reaching out to the neighborhood. I'm really glad that Pamela came to give her concerns, because we really do want to understand this is not, it is a big deal when you build new infrastructure next to a residential area. So
When's the hypothetical start date for this?
it'd be in the late spring of next year. Yeah. So we're looking for final plans in March. So we got time until looking to, continue to get input and until we get to the final plans. Yep.
I know you're taking notes. I'll give you a second. I have,
Okay.
yeah, follow-up questions.
All right, Tommy, what do you got?
Okay, so, well, yeah, I guess just high level, I don't know if you're going to speak to this later. What was the idea behind this particular design? Yeah, what were some of those objectives you're trying to achieve with this shared use path design?
Yeah, I think, well, the short of it is, we got the primary objective, which is what we, applied for the grant for, which is a transportation pathway. So, the ITIP grant, they generally don't fund recreational trails. This is not a recreational trail. This is for transportation for active users, for cyclists, for pedestrians. And so we want connectivity with these neighborhoods, with Main Street up that way, with Scottwood subdivision, and neighborhood south of Washington there, especially on our minds. And in the grant application was for the students, for kids who are walking or biking to school. This will provide a way for them to access without having to walk through the Scottswood subdivision where there are not sidewalks and so forth. So provide a safer path that way. Other big objectives are minimizing impacts as we build this, and that's impacts to trees, to the wildlife, to the natural areas of the park. We want to, and this is why we're working with the Park District closely, is to fit in with their updated master plan for Weaver Park. They've went through really a Herculean effort to, the Park District did, to update their master plan, and so we are fitting within that in a really complementary way. They've got some exciting things coming for that park. And we've got wetlands that we want to be mindful of, but definitely want to be mindful of not minimizing the impact to the residents. Lighting is very important to get it right. We can't be having glare, going off the property and into people's yards. And so I think, so we'll kind of look at how we're trying to detail that as we keep going. But does that can help paint a picture there, Tom?
Yes, that's wonderful.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't want to hog the mic, but during the public input, an alternative idea was raised, which I'm just curious about, of a path linking up to the parking lot on the west side. So, are there any issues with that idea? Or why was that not? Why was this design chosen? I guess on the east side.
Yeah, well, with the objective of the connectivity with the school, and the Park District's health and wellness facility there. And I know the concept for this alignment really predated me. It was in previous master plans that the city has published. I think pedestrian master plan. I don't know if it was in the bicycle master plan back in 2016. But
Jeff, do you want to come and give us some history? Yeah, it's kind of important to get the back history on how.
Okay.
As anyone who deals with infrastructure, you know that it takes years upon years to get anything done, and not in a bad way. It just is what it is. So, Jeff, can you give us the back history on this?
Mic on? We good? So Jeff Yockey, live in Urbana on Champaign County Bikes, and also involved with the Friends of the Kickapoo Rail Trail. So lots of studies and figuring those kind of things out. The place where the trailhead's going to go in the parking lot that's referenced is pretty far west. It's west of Smith Road. And so one of the criteria was to try to make the connectivity with the KRT as it comes into Urbana, and the rail corridor is owned pretty much right up to where Baker's Lane shows up. We've got a little bit of work with the railroad to get 800 feet, but we're almost there. So that's the reason that we're aligned on that side, that's essentially where the trail is going to stop at the moment until we can obtain the rail trail all the way back into Urbana, and that's another 20 years. And So that's where the alignment question comes. Additionally, another group of users of this will be the people that live north of University, where their kids also go down to Preston Williams School. And so that's in the school district. So the people that live north of University can cross, catch the trail, cross Main Street through the park and get to the school. I think one of the reasons you build shared use passage is you create a low-stress opportunity for people to walk or to cycle that people are comfortable with it. And so when you have the connectivity, that's going to be sweet for a lot of people to be able to come down and get a good walk, get outside before you get into school. So that's part of the reason that the alignment really works on the east side of Weaver Park and not on the west.
And it was, this was all in play long before Weaver Park was designated, it's going to become like a natural area, and they're going to, so it was a way, at the time, when this first came up, we were like, hey, we were trying to get connectivity to Main Street, and we couldn't find any other way to get there. And then that's how the grant got applied for, and that was the history and the development of it, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and there's lots of ways. Once you have a trail, you're eager to see spurs connect different neighborhoods to it. And so this really connects Southeast Urbana all the way to get up to the trail, to get out and enjoy the trail that runs to St. Joe and eventually all the way to Danville. So it's bringing the trail deeper into Urbana, which is a really good thing. And as it goes through the town, we're going to try to connect it to the university and other neighborhoods as we go farther west.
Right, because right now, like, what happened was they opened the Kickapoo Rail Trail, and the only way to get there was to go through Scottswood, and then you'd end up on Main Street. And going through Scottswood wasn't quite, you were kind of squirreling around through there, and it wasn't as safe. There's a lot of cutaways, and then this space was available. So we thought maybe we could go for that space.
Is there a sidewalk there already where you're doing this stuff?
No, there's not.
Okay.
This is an empty
It's going from empty to
empty
a
30-foot right of way.
big busy path, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to say that the shared use paths along Washington Street provide a safer space for all the kids and our bus stations. Yeah. So yeah, there are many little stops, and there are many frequent users. There are not many, but they really depend on bus services. So this path will give them a better, safer space to wait.
And I'm sure we're going to have to increase safety crossing Washington, but let's focus on the path for right now. But I'm sure we'll have to increase that because there will be more people trying to get across Washington to use the path to get to school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're thinking of down here at Smith. Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so kind of get a little lost here in which entrance I'm at here, but still at Washington Street. Moving down here, still in front of the school. And yeah, another example here on sheet. My sheet numbers are all messed up in the PDF. Sheet 11, sorry. Here on sheet 11, and you can see some more jogging going on. We got a tree between the sidewalk and the curb. We're keeping track of, keeping going. Sorry, not very good play-by-play commentary here. All right, and then we are coming to the end of the Washington Street segment at page 12, and then we'll take a turn north. And now we've changed the orientation, so north is to the right, and here we're moving up along. Now, to get some orientation here, we've got we've got the addresses here along Dotson Drive. This long dashed line on the top of my cursor here, that's the city limits and the city right of way. So it's like the back lot line. And then this other long dashed line is the edge of the city right of way. And so then here we've got, school district property over here indicated with some temporary easement for the construction work. So every X you see on a tree is a proposed tree removal. And this is based on, some of these being trees that we didn't want to, the school district didn't want to keep, city didn't have a need for them, and they were getting close to the path.
So I have a question. Is that dashed, those two dashed areas, is that 4 feet off folks' property lines?
This right here?
Yep.
Yep.
And is there any, if there
would-
is like a 100-year-old tree,
Mhm.
I assume we would try to keep that, correct?
Well, yeah, could you tell me which is the tree? All right, so looking at 413 here, so we've got, so it's one of these trees here. Okay. Sure. Mhm. Okay, thank you, Pamela. I'll go out with my arborist and we'll look at that.
Yeah, if you could keep,
Trees. Yeah.
yeah, keep native trees, obviously, and honeysuckle, destroy it, but if you could try to keep as many native trees and then aged trees, like, because you can't, I'm not going to be here another 100 years to see
Mhm.
that tree grow again.
Sure, no,
So
definitely.
anything you can do to keep trees would really, I'm going to just highly recommend that. I understand they drop leaves, but boy, anything we can do to keep the trees would be great. They soak up a lot of water. They're good for a lot of reasons. We all know they are.
If you can scroll back to Washington Street, this is the first time I saw these, no, just right there, that,
Yeah,
no, yeah. You can zoom in right where that intersection, right there. So this is the first time I saw that plan. So I'll take another look at it, but thinking through the bicycle lanes that are on Washington, or people that would come off of Kinch a little farther west and then right east to catch that, how do they come off of Washington and then catch the path? So the driveway is to the north, and I can't see it exactly how, if you were riding west on the
Mhm.
bike lane, how do you get onto the path?
And it's a 90, you're saying it's a 90-degree, right? It's a 90-degree turn instead of a soft curve?
Yeah, and to have, that there's access from the path to across the curb to the road. So I don't
Okay.
exactly know how that I'll study it more, but this
Okay.
is just sort of to say,
you said westbound bike traffic.
or even eastbound, if you're coming
Mhm.
from Kinch and you're gonna come down to catch the trail and you're on the road, if you're riding down the bike lane on Washington,
Mhm.
what's it like to navigate that left-hand turn with traffic, with the divided median, and end up on the path? So I don't know yet. I just saw that, just so that, kind of a footnote to come back to later.
I wonder if it would be a good idea to have cyclists kind of utilize this crosswalk that's just a little bit further east. I mean, I know that sidewalk on the other side, but it's very close to the entrance of the path.
Get on a bike and say, which way would you go? Or if you're coming down the path from the KRT, when you get to Washington, what's it like to go right or to go left? How do you access the road from right there in a way that's safe and predictable, so the car users, the car drivers, would know exactly when they see a bicycle is coming, probably where they're going to go,
Mhm.
or how to give them room. So we'll just make it natural. It's just
The pathway
roadway
of
design,
desire.
so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, the pathway of desire is always the best thing, because people are going to just do whatever, they're going to do their pathway of desire, even if you don't give it to them. So it's better to just figure out what they're going to do. as we like to say, cyclists and pedestrians, they do funny things.
So I had another quick question. Do we have any ordinance or any rules about the use of electric vehicles on shared use paths or not?
We do not. I know the Park District has some.
Okay. Right now, not for electric. Okay, thanks.
Good question.
So when those folks from St. Joe's come in, I don't know.
Watch it, Annie. Okay, so, and, I'd say to the idea of going straight with the path initially is that we're not, we're making a choice about where do we swing the trail out, because we want to get away from the neighborhood. We don't really have a lot of real estate to do it immediately because we're right next to the school property. For this alignment, we started swinging the trail out once we crossed the property line from the school district to the park district. And, I think that part of what we were trying to do was to hit some spots like, I want to say it was like right here and then over in this area where there were some trees that we could, afford to lose, and then come out, get away from the neighborhood. But then we needed to come back because up here is the wetland. There's a large kind of a berm along the edge of the wetland here. And so we have to swing back away from that to not build on top of the berm. It gets us back towards the neighborhood, which makes the connection to Illinois Street a little better.
Is there a reason we wouldn't build on the berm? It's just pure curiosity.
Well, part of it, it'd be better not to build on top. That was like it has a damming effect of the water in a sense. We don't really want to, you don't want to mess with the dam in a sense. But it also would be best to kind of keep people away from the wetland. So we didn't want to draw people, to the wetland directly. We don't want a lot of foot traffic there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's right, yes. Yeah, and there is no way to build this path without taking out something that's there right now. But to cut down trees on the other side too, yes. But I brought up the discussion of how we chose to do this swing because I don't know that it's necessarily had to start here at the school district's property boundary. So if we do, we find there's trees we need to save here, it's possible we could find another pocket back here. Maybe we do the swing back here. I just bring it up, and I'm gonna explore that with our designers, where if we're able to make the alignment do more of a curve like this, that might avoid some of the removals that we are showing there right now. So.
And is there any plan to replace trees? Not at the moment, I'm suspecting, but I'm just gonna ask.
I'm pretty sure we were budgeting for some tree replacement. Now I don't know that I have to get clarification from the state if we are like required to do tree replacement, or it's just gonna be like up to us, like, where we wanna plant new trees. I know it's a desire we have, and it's an interest the Park District has as well. So it's our intention as to how many, we'll see how that plays out. It's not clear to me right now. Sorry, no taking again.
Maybe we give each person along here an oak tree, and they just plant multiple oak trees all along create this beautiful oak tree fence.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I just want to pause there. Tommy, did you see how there's did you see if you zoom in, do you see how there's those lines there? They go down, down, down. Yep. you see those lines through there? That's where, like, if you go through there right now, it's a rough, you can walk along the edge. I've biked and walked along this edge, but it's rough, but it's how people have been, that has been people's pathway of desire to get to different spaces before this. That's how we came to the conclusion for this space. They won't be able to do that anymore, that's for sure. Well, yeah, the other thing is it's not going to be built for vehicles, meaning it's not going to have the infrastructure to hold a vehicle, so that will absolutely not be allowed, because they will break it, and then they'll have to pay for it. I mean, I really would like to have them pay for it, but I'm not sure how we get that.
Have you spoken to the school district about this? Have you spoken to the school district about the people driving on that? Okay.
And we might have to. No. And we might have to put up, with that feedback, we might actually have to put up something to stop people. Yeah. Yeah, because once it's paved, people tend to enjoy thinking that that's a space they can drive on. So we might have to do something.
Do you think people come up from down here, Pamela? Can you see the map, Pamela? Are they coming down from here and driving up? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. And Derek, am I correct? There's going to be like a part of the master plan is potentially like a parking area up here. Yeah. Where, see, your access point is right about here-ish, is that right? Yeah, so from their new parking lot they just built, there'll be access up to this parking lot for fields up that way. Building on the other side. Have to be police. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. No, I wasn't aware that people were doing that.
There's absolutely nothing more frustrating than advocating for, applying to grants for, writing grants for, getting approval for a shared use bike path, and then having cars park and drive on it and crack it within the first year of installation.
Okay. All right, and then I know we probably need to try to wrap this up in this topic up in the next 15 minutes if we can. So then moving on past Illinois Street, well, getting to Illinois Street, the concept here is to provide a connection up to the end of Illinois Street, having a metal bollard here, drop down kind of as similar to the Kickapoo Rail Trail, common detail that's used. We'll do a little pavement patch here to connect up nicely. And then swinging back away as we get away from here's the delineated wetland boundary at that pond. As we come away from it, you see we're starting to swing back away from the neighborhood again, and we'll be able to keep a nice kind of buffer for a while here. And then we're coming up against another wetland. This is more of a waterway. And this, you can see this mowed dirt path. That's actually what you see is the desire line that Annie was talking about. I call them goat paths, but I guess it's probably better to call it desire lines are nicer.
I'm sorry, what's the word that you're using?
I was saying goat paths. Desire line's nicer, yeah. Sorry, that's my hillbilly coming out. So then we get to Elm Street, as we're kind of close to that wetland. We get closer to Elm Street, make that similar connection with a bollard, and then come down to North Elm Street. We're going to hug closer to the right-of-way to avoid that wetland, and then swing back. So one thing that I think is really a success of this alignment is that there were earlier alignments showing the path coming up through this wooded area here, and we found that we definitely had the space to make it, hug around this east side of that waterway. You can see this is the waterway, this is the wetland, so we could hug the east side and really impact a lot fewer trees and a lot less of the really mature trees by going this way. This would have been very impactful through here. Yeah, and so then coming up to Main Street here we have, we're connecting up with the existing path south of Main Street, and then showing a kind of offset mid-block crossing there east of Smith Road to connect up to the future Kickapoo Rail Trail. And I've already been seeing some preliminary drawings from the Kickapoo Rail Trail, and we've been, swapping drawings and coordinating on that.
And not to be a broken record, but will there be stop bars for cars so they know where to stop when there's pedestrians?
Gotcha. Yeah, we're not showing that right there. You got it there. We've got we're planning on using the rapid flashing beacons over here. This will be our signage detail at the mid-block crossing.
Yeah, the stop bars will be good because you're going to have parents with little kids and trailers, and you need cars to stop far enough back that they can actually observe the people in the space and just know where to stop. It's just really useful as a car driver.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could have a median on Washington on the south side? Sorry, a pedestrian island. Sorry, misspoke.
Let's see. That's a good suggestion. We haven't gotten. We won't be incorporating that with this project, but that definitely a big fan of a refuge island where we can fit it in.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that would be great too for cyclists crossing. Again, it's just past the path, but it might be good to just kind of funnel people in that way.
Right, and so the challenge we'll face down on Washington is that we're within the influence of the intersection with Smith Road. It's harder to, still have the turning movements happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of the really nice thing about having this crossing away from Smith Road on Main Street is we're avoiding those turning movement conflicts. And you just have cars going in one direction, and then you do have the space to have that median. So that can be a challenge when you're near the intersection.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. And then the last thing I'll touch on, the lighting, which is, I'll just kind of start here on plan sheet 20. And really what it is preliminary drawing, we showed the lighting all along the east side, with the purpose of that being is that when you have these light fixtures installed, the shielding you can put on kind of like the back face of the light is usually a lot stronger. So you're throwing the light towards the trail. You can put a shield to stop it, really abruptly from going backwards. So that was kind of, we wanted to first have that shield to block light to go towards that neighborhood. Now we are also going to need to balance consideration with, wetland areas. We may want to flip the lights around, but still so we're trying to this is like.
Are we going with dark sky
Yeah.
lighting? Yay.
Yes, I don't know if they're 100% dark sky, but they're largely dark sky compliant. And that's an example of the kind of lights I included in the packet before the plan sheets.
Just to be clear with everyone, dark sky means we're not sending the light upward, we're sending the light downward, and we're also tend to use a warmer glowing light. So it's not like when you're driving now and there's those crazy white headlights coming at you that blind you.
Right.
Because we're trying to make it good for the wildlife as well, which right now there is no lighting in these spaces, and we'd like to keep these spaces as dark as possible.
Yeah, so there may be, so we may look at moving the lighting to, switching from east side to west side, depending on kind of where we're trying to throw the light, where we're trying to shield it, and so forth. So if I come back to, that, nope, there we go. Back to the lighting.
And the other discussion I know, and I don't know how expensive this is or if it's possible, but lighting that only is on when people are actually using the path. As people move through the path, it lights
Right.
up like what it's doing right now on First Street or First Avenue.
Yeah, and we were, and this is where Derek and the Park District are getting really involved because they're going to take on these lights, and they're very attuned to how do you light a park. Is it really is all these things where you've got all these things you're trying to get, and a lot of these objectives conflict with each other at different points. So find that good balance. The Park District got some great experience in that regard. We're also, Derek was in contact with Savoy, kind of about, the details they used on that lighting. Like you said, it was they said it was 30%, 30% light until motion activated, then it'd come up and, go back down again. And so definitely sounds like a possibility for us. And this image here kind of shows like, a shielding application, what that looks like, what that can look like. And I want to say that this was, Derek, is this the one, oh gosh, now I'm forgetting the name of it, you installed recently there up on Broadway? The Learning Pavilion Nature Center. So, recent work there. These are the styles of lights that were done up there. So if anybody wants to swing by that facility and kind of get a flavor for what we're shooting for. I think we're looking at like 12 foot, 16 foot. Is that right? Yeah. So it could be, depending on how we're trying to balance, like, you go taller, maybe you can space it out farther, but maybe the shorter you have to, when you got a tree cover and things like that. Worried about birds flying into the light at night?
Yeah, they found with wildlife, one of the reasons you also want to do dark sky is moths, for example, and we have moths that exist in this space as well. What happens is if they always orient themselves towards the moon, so they keep putting their back to lights, which is why you need a cap on a light. So the light, it has a top, and it doesn't, otherwise they just fly endlessly. That's why you see the bugs flying endlessly around lights. They're just very confused. They can't figure out where to go.
Let's see, I think, so those are really kind of the main details for this project. I know, right now where we are is in the, preliminary design. We've got the basic information about the project out to the state for biological and cultural review, where they're reviewing for threatened and endangered species impact, potential wetland impacts. Actually doing work within a park triggers a special process we have to go through. As much as we shake hands with the Park District and say we're doing this together, it's still a park, and so we have special steps we have to take. And I know that there's at least like a rusty patch bumblebee, I want to say, is the species that we're going to have some special provisions we have to do during construction. We have to maintain the grass at a certain height around the, surprise, Derek. But you'll have to kind of keep that during construction. I know we've got some input from the Park District on the desire for minimizing work during certain migratory times of year for birds. there's some wetlands, obviously we have to protect, so we got plenty of objectives, like I said. But yeah, any other questions for now?
I'm like, just incredibly excited about this Rusty Patch Bumblebee situation. No, seriously, like, they are incredibly endangered. So, and it's very hard to create spaces for them to exist in. So thank you for finding that, and thank you for, you know, paying attention and taking care about that. That is very exciting, and bee people are gonna try to find them.
I'll pass it along to the Department of Natural Resources.
The DNR is,
Yep.
yeah, thank you.
Yep.
This is great, John. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for your discussion, and thank you for the public comments. We really appreciate it. All right, the next thing is new business, which is the equity and quality of life. So these are the EQL, the fiscal year 25 program.
All right. Well, I'll stay camped here. So what I wanted to do is give you guys kind of a flavor for how we're stepping through developing this EQL program, and then talk about what we arrived at as our recommendation for basically spending the $1 million that City Council has allocated for this second equity and quality of life program. So let me switch back. Sorry, that's my extra. Oh, where's the end button? There it is. Yep. Okay. So this few pages I sent you. So obviously I'm not going to sit here and read this in front of you, but we worked with city administration to develop kind of a city administration and the grants division of community development to come up with a kind of a different process for the equity and quality of life program this year. Last year it was really, had some great input from the community, a lot of great ideas. It became really challenging to kind of sort through all the different specific ideas that we got and arrive at ones that we recommended to council to implement. And so what we did this year is we took the grants program, the grants division, of community development. They'll do a community needs survey annually. And so we got the community needs survey, which included a question about what are the infrastructure needs in your neighborhood? And it was a multiple choice kind of, or a drop-down menu selection, I guess you should say. And people could write in answers as well. And based on the responses, we said, okay, here's by the count of number of people sending in surveys where the type of infrastructure people want to see. And where it really came down, it was sidewalk and pedestrian facilities was the top. Street lighting or lighting of the neighborhood was a second. We had concerns about traffic speeding was a third, and it really kind of dropped off from there. And so what we did is we looked at that. I was like, okay, well, people are really concerned about these areas, and use that as a starting point to say, okay, I'm going to take this $1 million. Let me try to spend at least a couple $100,000 on a type of infrastructure. I don't want to spread myself too thin and not make an impact. And then take that information. We know that part of what we want to do with the equity and quality of life, the objective of the program, is to improve quality of life in neighborhoods with lower income and with higher crime rates. So we want to try to, although infrastructure is not going to solve people's problems, we want to try to give a better quality of life where we've got some of these demographic challenges within our city. And so we use the community development target areas, which are census blocks with low to moderate income within the city, and also partnered with the police department to look at crime statistics, to look for hot spots that could overlap in areas where also, looking at master plans and asset management plans. Pedestrian master plan was a big source for inspiration here. And so then what we're doing with this program, developed the, selected projects that we could include within this budget, went through city administration, and then, take this draft program, send out letters to the neighborhood, which, we did that in advance of this meeting. Come to BPAC is a good place to sound off with you guys, get some input. What this also provides is, in my sneaky, public involvement way, this provides a really nice way. This is a recording of talking about this project. We can share this with people, say, hey, you want to learn more about this project, check out this recording. We talk about it, start at minute, 98 or something in the video. And so, then look to see if we can get BPAC support, get your feedback, and then I'm going to go in early February to City Council with this program and ask for their support, as well. So, sorry, that was the timeline that I was talking about. So what we came up with is that we want to make our recommendation, I should say, is that we focus pedestrian facilities and streetlights in what is termed the Silverwood neighborhood. So this is like Silver and Vaughter, west of Philo. I'll show you a map here. This is a map showing Colorado Avenue to the north, Philo Road to the east. We got Silver Street and Mumford Drive down there. The red dots I'm showing are existing streetlights that we have. Working with the police department, Melissa and the police department is really good with pairing her GIS maps and the crime statistics, and she came up with a query where, okay, what kind of crime could be mitigated, or the enforcement of crime could be helped out with the enforcement of the law, be helped out with streetlights. And so we're looking at calls that were made at night started from outside. So some activity was happening outside, and went over the course of last year from like July to July before, and created a heat map of the city. And it became very clear that there was a few, hot spots within the city. And it was pretty easy to identify really this area to where it just made us ask the question, is there a way that we could provide better lighting in this area that might provide some mitigation? And so what we do have is we have streetlights here that are pretty far spaced out to where, there's going to be a lot of, shadow. There's going to be a lot of gap between the lit areas. And so what we're proposing to do is to come in and basically fill in the spaces in between with new streetlights to provide more of a uniform lighting, for this neighborhood at night. And then pairing that with some sidewalk needs that we have from the pedestrian master plan, filling in, there's no sidewalk on Harding, from the imagery's not great in this one. Let me switch over.
I can see it now.
Oh, sorry. But so yeah, from Philo heading west, there's no sidewalk until you get to about midway to Cottage Grove. So we're going to fill in this gap here with the sidewalk, and also run some sidewalk down Vaughter here.
And you'll keep the street width the same, but you'll add, and the city owns all that right away?
Yes. It looks like we'll be staying within right of way for the most part. Typically, when we come across a driveway, we'll have to get an easement from people, just because it's hard to keep that all within right of way. So that's kind of the big sidewalk gap that's in that area.
That's just one side, like sidewalk on one side of the street. Not
We're
both
going to
sides.
do both sides.
Oh, okay.
We're going to do both sides for that. And as you may recall, the last round of EQL, we built sidewalk along Silver Street. And I forget whether it went all the way to Fletcher, but it was, I think it was. And oh, thank you. Yeah, I know that we had multiple residents, say they were, really appreciated having the sidewalk, thrown in there.
And there was another project that you did, I'm spacing the name, Fairlawn.
Yeah.
There was a lot of concern about that project, trees being cut down and things like that. But I can tell you for a fact, people are using those sidewalks, people are commenting how people are using those sidewalks. It's really,
That's great to hear.
yeah, it's been just and I was walking on it, and I used to live in that neighborhood, so it's just like, wow, there's people walking on the sidewalk here. This is so cool. So that's nice, and I can't wait to get the lights in there, because I started walking in there, and it is pitch black, absolutely pitch black. I, of course, want it to be dark sky. It's probably not, but I'm just going to say it.
It'll be very close. It's when you're shopping for lights, it's kind of like the fully organic versus like, oh, it's really close to organic, but maybe it's not certified by like, you know, somebody in Europe. You know what I mean? It's like 98% there or something like it. But
Honestly, you're taking neighborhoods like on Fairlawn that have no lighting. Like, you live over there. Yeah, Sue lives over there.
right.
I
Yeah.
know, I mean, I did spend $20 at Harbor Freight, because, so now when you walk by, you will get some light.
Yeah, and it's, so you're taking an area that has no light, and then you're adding light, so people are gonna complain if it's obnoxious street lighting, and they have to put curtains on their windows and other things.
And then, so that really, so it was really kind of led by the crime analysis, looking for is there a way we could, as a part of the city, we could really benefit from streetlights from a safety perspective, and you know, and the streetlights are really that we're looking to use really for pedestrian, you know, level use. It's not as much for the vehicles. But they'll benefit from it as well. Then,
And if it's pedestrian level use, you could go with, I know, I'm just gonna ask the question. You could go with smaller lights, like the kind of lights that you were gonna be installing over by Prairie Park.
yeah, I know that's a thought. I mean, that's definitely going to be consideration. So the current ones now are like the 20 to 30 foot, you know, mast arm ones that. We'll see. Will it make sense to stick with those, to do a lower, you know, shorter lighting in between?
It would feel less like surveillance-y, it would feel more homey. I think it would create a nicer feeling for the space, and if we're trying to get people to walk outside and feel comfortable outside, and we're trying to lower crime, that would be my suggestion, because I feel like if you put in this like surveillance-type lighting, people are like, well, bad things must happen here.
I hear you.
And if we do proceed with this, it would be lovely to get before and after crime stats, which I'm sure the police department would also like to see as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a design thing to create spaces that are comfortable, low stress, and it does change how people behave in those spaces when you create those types of spaces versus having it appear as surveillance. People will behave differently in those types of spaces. We're like moths.
Gotcha. And then one other aspect, so then coming back to that third point that was brought up in the community needs survey was concerns about traffic and the speed of traffic. And so one opportunity we have is that we have over here at Brighton Drive, we don't really have good curb ramps. We don't have good connectivity of the curb ramps across Cottage Grove. What I think there's an opportunity here for is to create some bump outs, because Cottage Grove does have kind of a statistically higher than average speed related crash history. So we have, you know, we've got our crash data that we can sort by, you know, causation, and when, you know, I mean, speed is probably like a factor in so many crashes, but when it's, you know, listed as the specific, you know, cause of the accident, that's, you know, statistically more significant in Cottage Grove than in other parts of the city. I think there's an opportunity here to provide a little bit of, you know, horizontal constraint as people are, you know, winding around this curved geometry here. So Brighton is an opportunity for that, and also here at Silver Street, we have some non-compliant curb ramps. I know, like I was about to pull up the RPC Sidewalk Explorer map. I run a little long on time. I don't want to I think everybody is probably familiar with that.
Is this the same as what's called the tubular markers in the text, or that's something else?
That's a different thing.
Okay.
Yes. And so for that Cottage Grove, those two intersections, be looking at building out the hard curb, and to, on the one hand, it's hopefully to give a little bit of a constraining feel for drivers, make them want to slow down, but also then make that crosswalk, that crossing, a shorter distance by, pulling it out and saying stuff that you guys all know. But
Oh, it's good. It would encourage people to cross the street, and right now it's such a big intersection. It basically just people set it up as a mental barrier to not go there.
And so then what we also are doing is we're building off some of the speed studies that we did with the last EQL program. And in the locations where we had statistically significant speeding, look at, are there some kind of low-cost ways that we can do some traffic, get some traffic calming effects. So looking at Broadway Avenue from Park Street up to Country Club Road, and then Kerr Avenue from Broadway over to Cunningham. And the basic concept is to try to use some plastic tubular markers. There would be the kind of like, about like 3 foot high, mounted to the road directly, and create like a channelizing effect at a point where we want to have people slow down when you have mid-block crossings. Along Broadway Avenue, we have a number of crossings, really unprotected pedestrian crossings, as connectivity with the park area. We've got this really nice shared use path along the west side. Obviously, we've got the aquatic center. We got, the nature center. We've got Crystal Lake Park, and a number of bus stops as well. And so, using Kerr as an example, one concept is to come back from the intersection a certain distance, and to run a line of tubular markers, something like a length of like 60 foot. So you kind of create this like fake median, and it's not a barrier, right? It's not stopping anybody, but what it does is when you're driving along, you see this thing at your eye line, and so it kind of gives you that like,
It
effect.
creates the perception of risk.
Yeah, it's like, what's that? And then as you come closer to the crosswalk, build out like, in a sense, fake curb lines with the tubular markers, where we're still providing the roadway width for 2 cars to go through, but it's just not the extra width that we have. So where it's, you're getting it on the one side, and then you're getting it on the other side as well. And so, it's a concept where we're kind of checking out the turning movements to make sure we got buses can make it through here, navigated emergency vehicles, things like that. But, we're looking at really kind of taking a low-cost approach to that, really just a $75,000 budget, and seeing what that can get us in these different locations. Also grab Cottage Grove from Washington to Pennsylvania as a candidate from the speed studies as well. So that was, and what they all have in common is these are fairly long stretches without really any stop control for the intersection. So
And these are areas people have complained about for years. There's a person by the name of Deborah Liu who will be extremely happy. She no longer lives in our city, but I cannot wait to see this Broadway infrastructure and send a picture to her.
Yeah, and I don't doubt, like, what I think we'll probably want to do is do like a basic, test installation before we, mount some out there, like traffic cones or something, temporary that we can just throw out there. Let's kind of see how it happens. Do they all get run over with it, and we'll definitely think about how does this work with our snow plowing and things like that. So, operationally, but yeah.
Yeah, my question is, what happens when they get run over? Do they just pop back up?
There's different varieties that some have. Yeah, some are the fairly sturdy with a spring kind of hinge where they can get knocked down and pop back up. Now, do they not probably get damaged? They probably do. this would be a thing we'd have to have a budget for just replacing them regularly. I mean, they're
Yeah.
gonna get messed up.
Right, okay.
Yeah. That is kind of the basic idea of the EQL program. So we've got, coming back to that one pager, the bulk of the cost is going to be with the sidewalk, which I know is kind of discouraging. That $500,000 would get you only that length of sidewalk, but it's kind of the market we're in today.
Cheaper than road.
Well, that's very true. Looking at about $375,000 budget for streetlights, filling in the spaces there, and the $75,000 for traffic calming. It'll round us up to a cold $1 million. And yeah, the good news, we got some of the sidewalk is already kind of half designed, with some earlier design efforts we had made, with some community development money. So we have a little bit of a head start on this. So I'm hopeful that we get BPAC's support, we get council support, we can get to designing and hopefully get to construction middle of this year.
Do you need anything from us?
Well, I don't know if it needs you could, maybe propose.
Do we need Bruce to give us a resolution that we all agree on?
Yeah, and I don't know if it has to be like a real formal written thing, but it could be a vote support with an email or something, but. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that'd be great. And if, it might be just with the timing of this, I don't think BPAC is meeting next month. So BPAC won't meet until February.
So do you need this evening is what I'm looking, when I'm looking at your timeline, it definitely looks like you need BPAC's approval this evening.
I would say, I don't think you need to write a formal resolution, but if you wanted to
Verbally.
It's just say if we wanted to take a voice vote or something like that, and then it could be communicated to council, in a less formal manner, and then it could be followed up with a formal resolution, at the next meeting.
I move, help me phrase this, the committee endorse the Equity and Quality Life Initiative proposed on 12/17/2024 by John Zeman.
I will second that motion. Let there be light.
Do we just want to take a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. This, what is it? This voice vote passes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. This is fantastic. And I don't know if you saw Audrey's presentation to City Council, but I think she thanked you like 15 times in it.
My boss, the public works director, really gave me a hard time after that. He was like, "What did you do to butter them up so much?" Well, that's very kind. It's very kind, not deserved. You're like, "Get him out." I thought he was gone already. Why is he still coming to meetings? So, well, very good. No, it was a very good report. Really glad to see. I think you guys got a really good thing going. And oh shoot, I was gonna bring up. Well, I forgot I was gonna bring up one thing back in my staff report, if I may. Okay, the speed limit that Nancy talked about. So there was this handsome traffic commissioner there as well, and we were basically just came up with the Charlie Smythe had brought forward a really good point that there was a number of errors or omissions in the traffic schedule, which is the kind of mechanism by which city code gets updated with what signs need to go where. It's a little bit of a mess, and that's okay. We're organic organization that grows over time, and so there were some speed limit signs out that we couldn't find an ordinance to support. So if it deviates from 30 miles per hour within the city, it needs a city ordinance to, support it. And so that's why on Main Street, from Learman east to University, it's gone from 35 to 30 miles per hour. So we just basically took that as like, look, there's no ordinance to support it. We're just changing the sign to, reflect what's going on there. There were a couple other locations that changed as well. And I know for like Philo Road from Fair Lawn south to Colorado, we went and dropped that to a 30 mile per hour because that also, again, did not have the support of an ordinance. Now there are other, that actually helped us find other locations that also weren't supported, like North Lincoln going all the way up to Olympian. It just was a bookkeeping thing, like an ordinance wasn't passed. So we're keeping those in place right now, and I'm gonna bring an ordinance to council to clean things up and make it right. That was, I think those were, I don't know if I missed a location or not, Nancy, but it was a good conversation, a really good, a good thing for, Charlie to bring forward to us.
And it was impressive that you guys just changed you just changed the signs. I mean,
The power.
It was not a
Yeah.
big deal, but you just did it, and it was really, it was just kind of a relief that it just happened.
Yeah, and I wonder, obviously we, did close coordination with the police department, make sure everybody's aware of it's happening. Haven't heard boo from anybody about it. I know my wife didn't even know there was a speed limit on some of these roads, so, yeah, which it was coincidentally, like, this happened around the same time that High Cross Road speed limit got lowered north of Windsor as well, and that was an IDOT conversation. But for me, like, IDOT's like such a by-the-book organization, and I knew it was coming, and then I was like expecting some warning, and then one day just changed the signs, and I was like, they can do that, all right, cool. But anyway, so.
I mean, it's cool because it's like we know speed kills, and when the speed limit's set to 30, people will tend to drive 35, 37, and if it's 35, they're gonna
We
tend to
have
drive
7 minutes.
42. So this is a huge deal to drop the speed limit down to 30. All right, so the little bits and pieces we have left here, are there any announcement anyone wants to make? Are there any future topics we wish to discuss? And yeah, I would add in, is there any future topics that Public Works would like us to discuss?
I made an offhand suggestion last time about a no turn on red. I'll bring that as a detailed suggestion at the February meeting.
This is really not fair because I'm not actually on the commission anymore, but just as an FYI, in case it's not, people aren't aware of it, like talking about e-bikes and batteries and things like that, there's not currently a license or agreement that Urbana has with Veo or Bird. And so I just, bring that to the commission. It may be something you guys want to, get behind and give a push for and advocate for. It's honestly, it's a thing that, like, I know our planners are very short-staffed right now. Our community development's, missing some, staff members right now. So it's challenging to make it a priority right now, but I think there could be, like Veo's operating within Urbana, and it's fine. Like, and I think if there were issues, we'd have, the authority to come in and be like, hey, these bikes are blocking the right of way and doing things like that. But it'd be nicer to have it be a collaborative agreement where each party has rights and responsibilities. So yeah, because there was one, right, with the IGA with U of I, but then when that expired, there's nothing replaced it. So.
And I still would be interested in VO having like specific parking spots or drop spaces where the bikes have to be dropped instead of just everywhere. That, it's not, I understand that cars take up a lot more space, but it's just a thought. All right, everyone, I will add the VO, so it's VO and Bird is now who's operating in both of in our cities?
Bird's not actually operating. They're interested in.
That's what I was wondering. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I have seen a bird bike at the intersection of it's either Pennsylvania and Orchard or Pennsylvania and somewhere in that area on Pennsylvania between Race and Lincoln somewhere for a few days. And I thought, well, okay, maybe Marcus got it through.
Yes, and I should say I'm not I may not know everything that's going on,
Yeah.
so with a caveat.
I had a conversation, we had a conversation, Marcus and I. So I know that our city of Urbana is working on some sort of contract with Bird, but I don't know the status.
And there's no cost sharing, right? There's no yeah.
Is
There
there
may-
any kind of warning that VO bikers can get for parking in a sidewalk?
Not on a sidewalk, but for instance, I can talk about the university, that if a bicyclist and their bike ride, let's say blocking an exit or an ADA door or a sidewalk or a driveway, they will get a warning. The second warning comes with a penalty. Third warning, a heftier penalty. Fourth warning, their account is suspended.
We can put this on the agenda and really go into it, right?
Yeah.
Review the VO bike contract and maybe some rules and regulations. All right, we are down to 1 minute. And I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. And I believe this meeting of BPAC is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.